So we're lucky to have Andy Lowe, who is the Head of Research and Insights at FC Laboratories. Now, I love the front line, Andy, saying that you're behavioural psychologist, neuroscience and data analysis and data science. Now, that is quite a long-winded way of saying you're very, very intelligent. So thank you for coming to join us today. We've also then got Nathan Barker, who's the Chief Exec of the Institute of Occupational Medicine. Very experienced, approachable and commercially astute leader. Thank you very much, Nathan, for coming in. And also last but not least is Paul. Now, Paul is the Chief Exec and founder of Snugs. Now, that's a really fun name. So I'm wanting to hear more about Snugs. So maybe we can catch up later and hear all about that. Now, the three of you are going to come and talk to us about delivering major improvements in project safety in the COMIT2 Safety Project. So welcome to the stage.
We talk about commit to safety. I'm going to broaden it straight away. I need us to commit to health. Safety, we've generally got right. Generally, there are accidents. And if you listen to Dame Judith Hackett, who used to be the chair of the HSE, she will tell you from the thousands of RIDDOR reports she read that we have the same accidents every time, but with different people. We have the processes, the policies, the procedures. We heard all that before. We now have vast amounts of data, but we have people. And it is the people and their behavior that causes us the biggest problem, because we often cut corners. And it's really interesting when you talk to the HSE that they see the same thing time and time again. But when you look at the scale is really interesting for accidents, because this graph shows we used to have loads of accidents and now we have less, and we've plateaued. That's because we're in the hard miles. We've dealt with the low-hanging fruit in terms of accidents. We haven't dealt with the low-hanging fruit in terms of health. As a context, there were 19 deaths on site falling from height in 2021. There were 6,000 deaths from exposure and long-term health issues caused by being at work in construction. Most of you would have been able to find the 19 because it's often in construction news or a new civil engineer or in the Daily Mirror. The 6,000 deaths, cancer deaths, are not. So I want to open our eyes a little bit to the context that we've got a much bigger problem where actually, in a good way, there are some low-hanging fruit we can deal with. Because if you've got 6,000 people dying from exposure to stuff, maybe there's something we can do about that. That's a bit easier than constantly dealing with the behavioural issues that lead to those 19 other accidents. Because ultimately, there is a cost. These are some of the costs, not just human cost of death, but there are financial costs. And what I find really fascinating is that as you look at the longer cost, we've got a position where actually we can leverage technology enormously to help us to be more productive. The piece that really concerns me, and well-being is a bit of a word that I have an issue with, not because the sentiment behind dealing with people's both physical and mental health is important, because it is. That's why I run a not-for-profit research charity focused on workplace health. But a quarter of your staff today are off ill. A quarter. So when we talk about productivity and having a skill shortage and we need more people, I could kind of argue you don't. I could kind of argue, look after the ones you've got better and you'll increase your capacity by a quarter just by looking after them. And I don't just mean looking after the immediacy of health, of safety. I'm looking at the long-term impact of health. One of the reasons why injury through health impact is not very popular is because you don't see it. you see the tragic consequences of an accident like that. You don't see the tragic consequences of exposure to asbestos for 30 years. And yet the pain and suffering is far in excess because it is dragged out. And when you see people being properly ill, it's terribly unpleasant. So what? You've talked about a lot, the technology that we've got, the data that we've got. We need to leverage it better to enable us to really focus where we can have our interventions better. And I'd just like to introduce, well, they can introduce themselves, but we've got a couple of examples of excellence in practice that's currently happening today in the sector. Note, we don't say best in class, because my experience of best in class normally means there's a competition and then some people get grumpy. But this is some really good stuff going on today that maybe we can learn from and maybe we can leverage. Andy.
Thank you very much, Nathan. That was a wonderful introduction. And yeah, apologies about some of the formatting. I think PowerPoint hasn't liked the way that I've set this up elsewhere. But yeah, thank you very much, Nathan. It's a good background as to the angle that COMIT2 Safety is coming at this and the problem that we are trying to tackle. As Nathan said, we've got some great examples of solutions that are already being used, and one such solution, one such problem we need to tackle is MSK. It's been a problem in the industry since time began. Around about 53% of all ill health in the sector is still down to MSK, which is a huge amount. So I mean, if we can tackle that one problem, then that's a big improvement. With MSK, you've got some great new machinery coming in that is improving the situation and in many ways actually removing the human from the situation, which is great. However, we still need that human touch, although all this chatter about AI may disagree with us, but I do believe we still need the human touch in many different jobs. And also our workforce is getting older. We need to make sure that we improve the productivity of the workforce, even though they are getting older. And as Nathan mentioned, our productivity in the construction industry is getting worse, whereas we want it to get better. And oddly as well, compared to other industries as well, over the last 20 years, other industries' productivity is going up, whereas construction industry productivity is coming down. So yeah, this is a great example here. They are called Escalarate, which I don't know if I agree with the name, but this is an exoskeleton solution. Exoskeletons, to me, seems maybe like it's still in science fiction movies, but this is coming into a nice cheap solution. It's available right now, and it's easy to put on. And the gentleman there may be a year or two older than the one at the front of the picture there. He's able to do his job for longer, probably more productively than he has done for many years by using this Escalarate solution. This was demonstrated in BEST in Glasgow, BEST, Built Environment Productivity Hub in Glasgow. And this is another great little testimonial from people who are using Escalarate in a warehouse environment as well. Really good solution. Another huge problem that Nathan touched on is this worker well-being, people being off with stress, depression, and anxiety. These charts here, this is actually from a video, so yeah, same chart, different years. This is 2011, where we had MSK being high up, and this is across all industries, not just construction. And move forward to 2021, 22, and MSK across all industries is right down here. And workers being off for stress, depression, and anxiety has skyrocketed. That is not as much in the construction industry. We can have another discussion about whether that is to do with the culture of reporting these kind of issues, but still it's a massive problem. Around about 27% of all people being off in the construction industry is because of stress, depression, and anxiety. One solution for this is great platform called Cindy. Charlie is over here. If you want to catch up with Charlie afterwards, then I'm sure we'll be happy to chat. So yeah, Cindy noticed that there's around about 30,000 employee health apps available out there online. So even if you want to do best by your employees, and I'm sure we all do, then there there's a dizzying array of potential apps to use out there. Also, worryingly, only about 6 of them have actually given any clinical proof of efficacy for the apps that they're offering. So yeah, that's a major issue even in itself. Cindy aggregates all of these solutions. They then validate them with external validators and also the feedback that they get from the clients that are using their app. And then they do personal recommendations as well. So rather than a scattergun approach of just saying, here's an EAP available to all of your staff, and we don't really have a clue what's going on in their minds and what ones are suitable for them, Cindy provides personalized ones through the activity that they use on the app so that the right app gets paired with the right staff member. And, pop that on. Yep, a really nice result from pushing this out to about 20,000 people shows that around about 20% reduction in depression and a 9% reduction in anxiety, which is really positive. That's exactly what we want to see. We want to see technology used in this way. Another example here is Beeble. Vanessa, I don't think is here today. She was here yesterday, wasn't she? I wanted to ask her if it's actually meant to be called Be Able. I'm sure somebody in the room might be able to tell me if that's right, but Beeble or Be Able was a solution that used current technology, wrist wearables, during the start of the pandemic, so that sites, rather than having to shut down, managed to use this as a worker proximity solution, and then they could do track and trace and keep their sites running longer. Another great way of using technology, and as well a nice way of using available technology in a different way. Talking about using available technology in a different way, this is our solution, worker wellbeing solution by FCLabs. Our first product is CoreTech, and our main aim is to provide worker insights about what's going on in their head, to see when they're stressed, to see when they're also tired, look at changing shift patterns and things like that. However, Salosynesis, they do VR training and also training in sites offshore in oil and gas. They saw our solution and thought, hey, that's a really nice match. So we're working with them now to look at their training so that we can actually see that the people that are put through their training are learning. So if they do a task on a Monday and they do the same task on a Friday, we can actually show that they have learnt by what's going on in the front of their heads, which is really nice feedback to the people who are using their training. So yeah, our longer term aim is to provide these insights across the whole workforce. However, this was really nice for Salosynesis, and it's a nice example, I thought, of how technology, even by the people who are making it, doesn't need to be applied in the way that we think it is if other people can think outside the box. And I'm going to pass you over to Paul just now to continue on this vein.
Thank you, Andy. Good morning. So the risks identified so far have really focused on the outcomes that can be managed immediately. And we have touched upon that there are longer term outcomes that are not easily identified that can have devastating effects. And we've talked about vibration syndrome, silicosis, and hearing loss. There is legislation in place that requires you to control these hazards, and there's more legislation coming. This legislation tells us that the old methods, a risk assessment here, some PPE that was designed 20 or 30 years ago, are not working. Litigation is growing, increasing the cost of doing business, exposing the risk to profit. Now is the time to get ahead of this curve before it becomes more costly headlines and the negative PR that follows. There are new solutions out there. They can be cheap, they can be effective, and they can be quick to implement. They can save crippling lawsuits, but above all, they can save lives and improve people's health and well-being. One day, when I was 32 years old, the ringing in my ears from another noisy rock concert didn't go away. I developed tinnitus, as will 1 in 8 of you in this room today. Snugs applies leading-edge technology such as AI imaging, 3D printing to make better hearing protection. Nasty foam plugs and sweaty over-ear muffs are not addressing the risks you have assessed. They are not preventing ear damage, and they are failing compliance. Hearing damage is now one of the top 5 sight injuries. The average cost in the UK of litigation is £75,000, up from £25,000 just a decade ago. If you're doing business in America, you need to be aware a recent lawsuit, an individual won $25 million from 3M for damaging his hearing, and there are thousands behind that in a class action. So I encourage you to invest in your workers before they get tinnitus. You give them a hard hat before something falls on their head. Help prevent your workers being the 1 in 8 or contributing to the 1 in 3 of you who will have hearing loss by the time you're my age. Ooh, did I press one too many? No, I didn't. So isn't it time that we ensure that our valued staff's health and well-being is a leading benchmark for construction companies? We all know it's hard enough to get hard-working, good, loyal staff. It's costly finding new staff, onboarding them, providing them with PPE, only to have them to take days off sick, and in my field, with ear infections and with hearing damage. So look at the total cost. Show them that you care by treating them right. Keep your staff well, and they will work better, and they will stay more loyal. COMIT2 Safety, our group, is here to help make your lives easier. It's a forum to share best practice in the application of new technology to improve safety, health, and well-being. A network identifying, testing, and integrating technology, seeking to reduce costs, improve employee well-being, and increase productivity. Thank you. I'll hand you back to Andy to give us our final.
Perfect. Yep, a final little pitch here. So yeah, lots of great examples, a good background of the problem that we're trying to tackle, some great examples of the projects that COMIT2 Safety members have been involved in over the last few years, and also the projects that we need to and we want to be involved in over the coming years to forge this network and to be as productive as we want to be, and to reduce costs, improve employee well-being, and increase productivity. We're just asking for one thing here today, and we're asking for you to sign up to a newsletter. It's going to be a monthly newsletter. It will also have in the first month a link to our LinkedIn, and it'll have details as well for a monthly community meeting, which will be a simple little Google Meets that you click onto once a month if you are free. It'll be between half an hour and an hour, and it'll be a forum to chat about the current issues that you're facing and maybe connect with a few people that may be solution providers or have the same issues in the workplace that they're in, and you can discuss it. If you want to become even more involved, then similar to the other projects, we meet for a strict 30 minutes every Wednesday. Again, it's nice to have a regular group that meets up and grow the network and discuss the issues that we're wanting to tackle. So that because we've got a captive audience, we have, and we know that in your goodie bags as well, there's pens sitting in there. So if I could hand this around, it is literally just name and your organization. And I'm pretty sure Stuart has the other details that we can then put 2 and 2 together. If you could, I'll start with you because I know we'll get a name for you there. If you could fill that out, that'd be wonderful. If it's easier to put a business card in, then I'm going to hand around our hard hat. You can put a business card in. And I was late attending today, but we wanted to get these in your goodie bag. So if this comes around, put your business card in if you want, but also nab one of these lovely stickers as well. I will, you know what, I'll start that up at the back. Nab a sticker. Thank you very much, and hopefully we can discuss some of the things that we have talked about there in the discussion that I think will be happening very shortly.
Thank you all three.